Stasek. I'm the statewide field services representative for the Preservation Alliance of West Virginia. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what Preservation Alliance does, and we are going to have a mothballing workshop today. I'm going to explain a little bit about what mothballing is, and then we'll go to the shop and we'll actually have a hands-on demonstration. The Preservation Alliance of West Virginia was organized in 1982. We are a grassroots organization, nonprofit. Our mission is to help communities save endangered historic properties that are either on the National Register or eligible for register listing. And the reason for that is a range of funding opportunities opens up to those who are on the National Register as opposed to those who are not. I took this job in 2009. I'm the first ever to have this position as field services representative. As a boots-on-the-ground person, I work directly with communities to help save endangered historic sites. I teach both academic subjects such as National Register nomination methodologies, hazardous materials handling, and I also am a hands-on craftsman, so I teach such subjects as historic windows restoration and mothballing procedures. We have an endangered properties list with the Preservation Alliance of West Virginia. Communities come to us for listing, and if they fill the criteria, then they are listed on our endangered properties list, and then my talents kick in. I will do site assessments. I will help the building property stewards in any way that I can to stabilize the property, which mothballing is part of that process, to help them with listing on the National Register, and a range of other functions. Our executive director, Danielle LaPresta, also works in a capacity with helping the communities with such diverse subject matter as state and federal tax credits, various different sources of funding, and other she does other functions as well. Let's talk a little bit about mothballing and what exactly mothballing is. If a building just sits vacant, it is subject to quick deterioration, most especially if there's no heat. The deterioration begins with various different types of molds, rots, sweating of plaster, the plaster begins to fall. Vagrancy is a problem. So the mothballing process addresses several issues. It addresses the issue of illegal entry. It will seal the building from illegal entry. It will also stabilize the environment of the building. It is important to control for temperature and humidity between the external environment and the internal environment, and mothballing helps to do that. But mothballing does not suggest sealing the building up tight. That can do more damage than leaving it open. So the mothballing procedure closes the windows, closes the doors, but installs vents, either passive or active, that try to control for temperature and humidity and attempt to equalize the interior and the exterior atmosphere. Today we're going to show how to do that. A properly mothballed, and so why mothball? Well, let's say that the property stewards don't have enough money to rehab the building, and they have to do it step by step. Well, secure the building, and that is mothballing. Secure the building from vagrants, which indicates a chance of fire, and from vermin such as bats and squirrels, rats, and it also tends to then want to stabilize the environment to minimize the chance of things like black mold and white rot, which are both pretty destructive. So if you don't have the funds, or if you're developing a plan, if properly mothballed, the building can be stabilized for up to 10 years. That's on the outside, but up to 10 years. Now, In my line of work as a preservation historian and cultural resource person, I have to follow certain guidelines in restoration and preservation. Those guidelines are dictated by the United States Department of Interior as promulgated by the National Park Service. So all best practices, preservation practices in the United States is dictated through the department, through the National Park Service. There are several sites one can visit, and I'm going to offer a site here. If one puts in the computer NPS preservation briefs, there'll be some 48 or 50 instructionals, tutorials on how to do various things, working with historic stucco, working with historic windows, working with various different subjects related to the preservation of historic sites. And indeed, number 31 is the mothballing of historic buildings. So if one goes to NPS preservation briefs and scrolls down to number 31, everything about mothballing that you really want, the lay person would want to know, is in here. Now that we've talked a little bit about what Preservation Alliance does and what I do and what mothballing is about, we're going to talk a little bit about both site safety and organizational capacity, which go hand in hand. Site safety is very important, whether it's in your shop, whether it's on site, even if it's a temporary site. It's a good idea if you're going to be working in a place for a while on site, take one room, set it up as a tool room, as a parts room, and as a production room. Keep it clean and keep limited access. Only those people who are there as part of the function need to be in that room. Otherwise, somebody can get hurt. So what we're going to do here is I'd like you to join me in my tool room here, and we'll look at how to organize a room, and we'll talk a little bit more about safety. Well, here we are in my tool room. As I said, organization goes hand in hand with safety. It's very important both in your shop and even more so on a site where you may have boards with nails sticking up. You may have all sorts of hazards. It is very important to keep the site clean. First of all, it becomes more efficient, and obviously it's safer. People need to wear safety glasses. If people are using paint thinners, things of that sort, they need to wear the proper masks. There are different types of masks for different purposes. A simple dust mask, what they call an N95, is good for dust, but it will not keep vapors out. One would need an N100 for that. You can be advised of these sorts of things simply by asking people at your local hardware store or going online. You'll notice that everything here is well organized. It's just as easy to, when I'm working here, take something off the shelf, use it, and put it right back, as have everything laying all around. At the end, it's easier to clean up, but it's very, very safe. Also, when we think of organizational capacity, we think of space. If you are setting up your temporary shop on a work site, once again, you need to limit access to who can come and go, because those who are not directly part of the process shouldn't be there for purposes of safety. Power tools being used, there's all sorts of dangerous situations. It also must be kept clean at the end of the day, or maybe halfway through the day. Clean up the sawdust, pick up the scraps, get them out of the way. If you're on a temporary site, set up a table, lay all of your tools out. In a bit, when we start this mothballing process, you will see just that. You will see I will have all tools laid out, and it just makes the process much easier, quicker, and the key is more safe. outside here. Now the two panels that we are going to put together today are not for this building. They are for a building in Beverly, West Virginia, built around 1800. I'm out here showing you now where the panels should sit. We don't want the panels to be on the outside of the window frame because you can get weather in. What we want to do in this particular case, we would want, if we were mothballing this window, this would be 32.5 inches by roughly 42.5 inches. We would cut our panel to that size. We would remove these two panes of glass. We would put the panel up, and you will see how we will produce a mothball window panel that will be tamper-proof from the outside. From the inside, it will be easy to fasten without screwing anything into the historic woodwork of a building, and it will be easy to remove. So now we'll go to the shop and we will start to produce two of these panels. We're going to talk a bit about materials here and what we're going to be using today. This is called OSB, Oriented Strand Board. Happens to be 7/16 of an inch. This is the back side. This is the front side. The smoother side is what's going to be put out toward the weather. Thank you, Ike. Ike has coated these with a combination. This is Olympic, but you can use any brand. This happens to be a primer and a finish coat. It saves one whole step, saves a lot of time, and of course you can repaint these things while they're up, and so on and so forth. Ike, set that aside. Now, these are 2x2s. Actually, they're 1.5 by 1.5. Ike and I had bought two 2x4s, and we simply ran them through the table saw and split them to 1.5 by 1.5. Now, you can buy the 2x2s directly from your Lowe's or from your Home Depot store. So if you don't have a table saw, you can buy these pre-cut. The type of hardware we're going to be using today, this is called an all-thread bolt. It's an all-thread rod, and we'll be showing you what we're going to be doing with that. We're also going to be using something called the carriage bolt. Now the carriage bolt is an interesting bolt because it's got a rounded head here, and it's got a square back to it. And the old blacksmiths and the carriage builders would drill a hole in the steel. They had a little tool that they could hit while the steel was still hot. It would square the hole, put this in, and they could put a nut on it. And you'll notice there is no nut on this end. Well, we use these because this then becomes tamper-proof. When we're going to drill through here and when we're going to bolt our constituent parts on, we will use these so that in the end nothing will be able to be tampered with from the exterior of the building. Now, once again, these panels are not going on this building, on the building that I showed you previously with the window size. These are going to a historic home in Beverly, West Virginia, built around 1800. Now, the size of these panels, when you buy a sheet of the OSB or a piece, an oriented strand board, or a piece of plywood, it's 4 feet by 8 feet in diameter. What we need today for the two panels that we're going to be making, we need them 68.5 by 34.25 in width. 68.5 length, 34.25. Now, what I did was and you can too if you don't happen to have a saw to cut it yourself, either Lowe's or a Home Depot for either 50 cents or $1 a cut. We'll cut them for you. So what we did was we had the 4x8 cut down to 34.25, and we had it also cut down to 72, but we need 68.5. So I'm going to show you now how to cut this safely to 68.5. C-clamps are a third hand. We've got two pieces of wood here that we're going to be cutting at the same time. So we will clamp them so that they don't move around on us, and I can do the work myself. Put one over here. And that'll secure these two boards so they don't slide. It's very important when working with power tools that if you're going to do any kind of adjustment whatsoever, you unplug it first. Many an accident has happened because people have not done that. Now, with my particular saw here, between the blade and the guide, it's 1.5 inches. Now, I want my piece 68.5 inches. So what I will do first, once again, a clean workspace. Have yourself a little table so things aren't all over the place. We want 68.5, and we want 68.5. That's our total length. But if we put this here, what we need to do is measure 1.5 inches back where our guide is going to be, which will take up for the blade here. So what we'll do is, instead of 68.5, which is what we had measured, which is what it's going to be, thank you, Mike, we'll go 67.5. Well, let's see. We'll go 67, and that will be our 1.5 inches. If you hold that there, Ike. Okay. We'll put our guide across, and then we will check and make sure we've got what we need. So we'll line it up here at 67. And the same here at 67. You always need to put the clamp on the outside, because this is going to be our guide. And we will now, remember, measure twice, cut once. You don't get the chance again. So we're going to check here, 1.5 inches, right at the edge. And we've got our 1.5 inches right there. Check with our blade, and we're good to go. Okay. It's interesting to note that when you're using a circular saw, you want, a saw will chip pieces out, okay? We have our two good sides down that are going to be outside, because if any chipping happens, we want it on the inside. With a circular saw, the blade turns this way, and so you want your good side down. If this were a table saw and we were running this through, you would want the good side up, because you're working at the other side of the blade, and the blade is turning down at you, and so it will chip out the bottom. In this case, any chipping would happen out the top. So, always
and forever, use safety glasses. Okay. Hands clear, everybody away. Now, Mike, can you get those, please? Once again, keep the site clear. Once we finish with this panel, Ike will then go ahead and he will paint these edges. So then you can see how a little bit of chipping happened there, but there's no chipping underneath whatsoever because we were cutting this way. Okay. So now we have our cutting complete. If you had not had them cut to width, you would take a straight edge like this and do the very same thing that I have done, and to affect okay, we're now going to work on these panels one at a time. How about taking that one panel and setting it over there? Set one panel over there. Take this off. Take one of these panels, set it over. Great. Okay, excellent. Okay. So what we are going to do today is we are going to fasten two pieces of this 2x2 here, one here, and one here. And we are also then going to use all thread. In the middle will be an all thread and an all thread. When this panel goes up, we will then have a 40-inch piece of that with a hole drilled in the middle. The panel goes up this way, one piece goes across here, one piece goes across here, and we sandwich the panel to the window frame with no screws screwed into any of the trims, and it will be very secure. The end of this video will take place down in Beverly, and people will show you how easy these things go in and how easily they come out. What we are going to do here now, we need 4 small braces, 32 inches. This saw to you. This is known as a compound miter saw. It's a miter saw because you can set it at various angles and it will miter those angles. We can make a picture frame. There's 45. We can cut 4 pictures, 4 pieces of wood, and we have the picture frame. However, the reason why this is called a compound miter is because if I can get it, this saw has the capability of turning this way as well. What this is, if you have a hand saw and you're cutting this way, it'll be straight down. If you turn it this way, then you get your angle. If you do this, then you get an angle this way called a compound angle, and that's when you see picture frames that are turned in and you get dimension. That is a compound miter. We are not going to use a compound miter feature today. We are going to just cut straight. Straight cuts on this. We are going to cut our pieces of 2x2. Ike, if you could position yourself over here. Hold this end up for me. We are going to need 4 32-inch pieces. So we'll cut 2 of them first. I will explain in a moment why these are being cut the way they are. Once again, the safety glasses. Everyone away. Here we have two 32s. You want to look at your wood too. You notice we have a bad knot here. We have some pretty clear wood here, so we'll eliminate that bad knot from the piece of wood that we're going to be utilizing. Now, we have those cut. Can you hand me those? I'll get them. Unless you can hand them to me. Wonderful, thank you. Okay. We now, according to our specifications, need 4 of these 40 inches. And we'll demonstrate again what these are going to be used for when we're complete cutting. Measure from here. All right, you ready? Okay. Now we'll go back to our other station and we'll start our assembly. We're now going to begin to assemble our panels. We're going to do them one at a time. As you recall, we've cut pieces 32 inches and now we've cut a piece 40 inches. Our ultimate goal here is to fasten one of these pieces, this way. They're going to be bolted with our carriage bolts that we talked about coming up from this way, but we are also then going to install a piece of the all thread. Now ultimately that all thread is going to go through a hole here and it'll be facing this way, and then our 40-inch pieces will go across and sandwich the board in between the window and the wall. So what we're going to do here first is we will lay out all 4 of our 32s at the same time, save some time. Just like that. We're going to measure in 3 inches, 3 inches, and this is 32, so we're going to split it at 16, which is half of 32. This is a combination square. It's very handy. It's a right angle, plus it's a 45. We're going to use the right angle. We'll strike some lines here. And because these are slightly different in width, what we'll do is we'll measure each and every one of them. This is 1.5 inches, so it should be 3/4. 1.5 inches, so 3/4, and indeed 3/4 in the middle. Here we have a little bit over, so we'll do 7/8. This should also be, yes, a 3/4. Do this one, 7/8 and 3/4 and 3/4. This one should be 7/8 in the middle and 7/8 in the middle. Now we want, in the case of these outside holes, we want our carriage bolt to be able to fit through those holes easily. So what I'm going to do, this is a little tool, it's a sizing tool. I can go and I can find the hole that is the one that I want, which in this case would be 17/64. Go to my tool, to my drill bits, there's a 17/64. I just threw 2 pieces of wood like this along there. Will you get them for me? See? They'll work. Okay, so we've used our sizer. What we're going to do, we're going to take some scrap wood and we are going to, where we're going to drill, put a piece of scrap wood underneath so we don't break out, our wood on the other side. Just like that. Okay. Just a regular 3/8 electric drill. Our drill bit. We're going to drill one and we're going to make sure we have the right size. Since we have a piece of scrap here, we might as well drill through the scrap. And indeed our bolt is going to fit through there very nicely. Yes, very nice. Okay, so we can now drill these. You always want to clean the hole out when you're drilling because you can burn up a drill bit. If you get too much sawdust down in there, it'll heat up and burn the bit up. Alright, we've drilled all of the holes that we need for bolting these pieces to both of our panels. Now we need to work on the all thread. Once again, we take our sizing tool. Let's find which piece would work well, which hole would work well. In this case, the 5/16 would work well. And again, we can, since we're done with this bit, let's go ahead and put it back. And we have a 5/16. What we'll do here, of course, is, since we have our scrap, let's go ahead and drill a hole to make sure that we have what we want. Okay, let's see. I would like to have a hole just a little bit bigger so we don't have to struggle with it when we put the thing up. So we will go up to the next size up, which is 2164. Let's go ahead and see what we got. And try our all thread. Much better fit. Much better fit. Okay, now, because these are going to be laying flat on our surface, and because this is going to be coming through this way, we need to countersink so that this nut and this washer will be buried when we are through. So what we're going to do here is we are going to find, these are either called spade or paddle bits, okay? We are going to find a paddle bit that is just larger than our washer, which looks like it's going to be somewhere around a 7/8. Actually, we need to go one size larger, which would be 1 inch. Okay, now, we only want to drill that size hole deep enough so that when we put our piece of all thread with our washer on it, only that will be buried. So I'm going to drill with a spade bit first. And what does that look like? That's pretty close. We're going to do just a little more, and we're going to drill that depth, all 4. Now, you can take a piece of masking tape and put it around here so as a depth guide. In this case, I'm just going to do it by eye. Now that we have our 4 countersinks drilled, we take our, once again, make sure we have the right bit. Yes, indeed we do. And we are going to now drill all the way through. Take a moment to clean up. Could someone hand me those 3 all thread over there, please? All right, cut. So here's what we have thus far. We have our rod that's going to go through. Nice and flush there, less than flush. And then we are going to secure these bars to our panel with our carriage bolts from the other side. That way, we're going to have one of these here, one of these here. That way, when we put the panel up in the window, with the window sashes either lifted up and pulled down or removed, we can then take one of our bars, and we still have to drill these. This will go this way, and you tighten the bolt, the nut down, and the panel and this piece get sandwiched in between the wall, the outside wall and the inside wall. Easy to install, very secure, easy to take down when you're working on site. So we'll continue here. The first thing we're going to do here is we'll put all 4 of these together. This is just, these are 5/16 carriage bolts, or 3/8 carriage bolts, 5/16, 3/16 carriage bolts, 5/16 all thread. But they can really be any size. You don't want to go much thinner than the thickness of this because the rod then becomes too flexible. Just check to make sure we have all of them as they're supposed to be. Yeah, that's very nice. These will be for our next panel. And we'll just finish assembling these quickly. Okay. When we have a double sash window, we have an upper sash and a lower sash. There are 2 ways of approaching mothballing that window. We can bring the upper sash halfway down and the lower sash halfway up. That gives us an open space here and an open space here for our rod to come through. In this case, what we are going to do is we are simply going to use the lines that were provided. Well, we'll measure 12 inches down. Let's do that because that's been cut down there. 12 inches, 12 inches. Fring or square. Okay, and this is our line. Now, always remember to make an X on the side that your piece of wood is going to go. Because you could easily, when you're working, put it on the wrong side, and then later you have to come back and change it. So just make sure the first time. We are going to measure up 12 inches. And again our X and an arrow facing which way it's going to go. Now, I have a little bit sticking out there, so that needs to be there. Very nice. Very nice. Now, our panel is 34 1/4. These are 32. So we will make, what we'll do, center, make a center mark here at 32. This will save you a lot of mental math. And then this is 34 1/4, so it would be 17 1/8 at the center. And now all you need to do is match those 2 marks up. And there you have it. Okay? Now, we are going to drill. Again, I don't want to break out the wood. And so, moving this in, and I've got a piece of scrap here. And once again, what was our did we have here? I think it was 1964. We will once again test just to make sure. One just a little bit smaller. See how 9/32 works. The reading is 17/64, but again, with that, the point is you don't want to have to wrestle trying to get everything in place. That'll work ideally. Okay, so what we do here, now put that bolt in for now, so that that end of your wood stays where it's supposed to be. Two nuts, two washers. Now, once again, we'll drill. Now, move this out. We're on a bolt top. Here. The washer and the nut. And these require a 7/16 wrench. Just tighten them up, snug them down. Now we've got one in place, we'll do the next one here. Alright, once again, $34.25 would be 17 1/8. This is our ledger line. And 32 would be 16. It's our ledger line. Kelly, can you come and help me a moment, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, there's our ledger line right there on that side. Let's stand right here.
Okay.
Right here. I want you to press down on that tightly. Ready? Once again, our line will from the other side. And the washer and 7/16 nut. And the same thing here. There we go. And then the next panel, you just proceed the very same way as we did this one. The next thing we're going to do, instead of finishing that panel in the spirit of time, we're going to now install, when I'm finished here, we're going to install a vent. But let's just finish here, and we'll take a moment to clean up and reorganize. And the one thing we still need to do is find the center of our crossbars. These, I believe, were 40 inches, which would of course make it 20. There's 20 inches. Strike a line with our combination square. Okay, that's going to be 7/8. This is going to be 3/4. The only reason why the difference is because these are a little bit different in thickness. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Okay, now that we have that, let's go ahead. Good. Once again, our final step here is going to be to install a vent. As I said earlier, when mothballing a building, it's important to try to sort of adjust and equalize outside temperature and humidity with inside temperature and humidity. That's not to say you're going to hit it on target, but you need to at least attempt. That is what these vents do. You would put some on one side of the building, some on the other, so you get cross ventilation. The general rule of thumb is you want between 1 and 4 air exchanges, cubic foot air exchanges per hour in a building. People can calculate that for you. We're just simply going to give you a demonstration now of how to install one. This is a passive roof vent used for a home. It says up here, so that's the part that's going to go up. What we're going to do is we're going to cut a hole so that we can install this, and I'll show you the screws that we're going to use to install it. Now I've measured this out, and if we cut a hole 11 inches by just about 14 and a half, we will have a hole big enough to fit this in. So what we will do now, if we were going to do a number of these, which in a building you would have to, get yourself a piece of foam core board, make a template, and then you can lay the template right on each piece, draw, and then cut. Because we're only going to do this for demonstration purposes, I am going to measure and draw out right on this particular piece. So what we're going to do first strike a line right about where that's going to be, right there. Let's go ahead, it's our square, and strike a line. Okay. Now, what is our center? Again, this is 34 1/4, so 17 1/8. 17 1/8. Now, because this is going to be 14 1/2 inches, do here. Measure 14 1/2 down. Use our square. Double check our measurement. That's pretty good. Just a note here, when you buy a new tape measure, many people think that it's broken because this part is loose, okay? It actually moves back and forth for a reason. If you were going to take an outside measurement and pull, it stretches this way. But what about if you're going to take an inside measurement? Well, the amount that this moves is exactly the thickness of that piece of metal. So when you do an inside measurement, it pushes up and gives you the accurate measurement. So don't be fooled and think that that's broken when you buy one. It's supposed to be like that. Okay, we now have our 14 1/2, which is what this is from here to here. We want 11 across. We have found, we'll do 11 here as well. I mean, this will be 17 1/8 to find center. Okay. Hand me that scrap of wood there, please. Thank you. I will just use this as a straight edge. And this is our center. Okay. We need to measure out 5 1/2 inches this way and 5 1/2 inches this way so that we will have a total of the aggregate of 11. So we'll set this at 5 1/2. Make a mark here. Well, let's do it this way. 5 1/2. And 11. Half 11. Straight line. Strike a line. Double check. There's 11. 14 1/2. Now, this is slightly less than 11. This is slightly less than 14 1/2. So I have given a little bit so that for any unevenness, we'll be able to fit that in. Ike, if you would come over here for a moment and help me. This is Ike. Ike works in my shop with me. Take a bow, Ike. Come around this side. Hold that like that. Okay. What we're going to do here, right on center. On center, right? Yep. Okay. Put that clamp on too, if you would. You can let that go. That clamp. Okay, now, this is a saber saw. This is controllable by speed. There's a speed adjustment here. what we're going to do is we're going to look for a drill bit that's slightly bigger than that. Okay. Just a little portable cordless drill. We only need to drill a couple holes. Here. Once again, we put that wood on the other side so it won't break out. Okay, I come over and help me a moment. Let's slide these over to this line. Hook it up the same way. Oh, that's okay. It's just all right. Here. And here. Okay. All right, Ike, let's take this off, please. Okay, you can take those away. There's that tool room. Yeah. It's great to have an extra set of hands. Okay. Here we have our holes. All right, now what we do, simply make our cuts. See how we did. Hope we did well. Okay, once again, up. Fitting very nicely. Now, there's a type of screw called a zip screw. They're used by furnace men and women, doing duct work, doing metal work. There's no need to, I don't know whether you can see that, it's very pointed. It is self-tapping. All we're going to do, take a couple of these, there, here, here. And we have just installed passive vent. Ike, if you would come over here and help me in a moment. Let's just get these things off first. Get that stuff out of there. And we will show what we have. Show and tell. Okay, Ike, help me here now. We're going to pick this up and just turn it this way. Go over there. And turn it this way. And there we have our mothball panel. If you'd like, it's not necessary, but you could fill this with a little bit of caulk. The reason why this looks like it's so off is because this goes at a slant here. But you want to paint this, and there you have your panel. You'll notice that the carriage bolts will not allow for any kind of tampering whatsoever from the outside. When this goes across, and this gets put in, and this gets sandwiched on the inside, the only way to get this panel off is to take these pieces off from the inside. So here we have a mothball panel. Well, now that we've assembled the panels, we are going to install a panel here. I have a helper out here, Donald. He's going to put the panel up, and we're going to put the strip that we have cut across, which will then sandwich the panel with the vent installed between the window jamb, and thus securing it. Can't be tampered with from the outside, can only be removed from the inside. Donald, if you would.
You ready?
You're ready. Okay, so our panel has been moved in place. We simply put our bar across. The washer here. If this were wider, you would put 2 rods here, but this being so narrow, you just need one with this brace. And we take a wrench, 9/16 box wrench in this case, straighten it up a little bit. And that's the installation. We have now sandwiched this together within the jamb. The only way this can be taken off, it's tamper-proof from the outside, you have to remove it from the inside.